Hey guys, Christy Velasquez here from the Stamp Cycle, and welcome to another video for my YouTube channel and blog. I made this card probably about a couple weeks ago and shared it on my Instagram account, and I had a few people ask if I would do a video on how I made it. So this is the Mother's Day card that I made for my mom this year, and it features some watercoloring using Stampin' Up! Inks, and it actually is not as hard to make as it looks. So let's get started. So I'm using the beautiful stamp set Petal palette. This was from the 2018 Occasions catalog from Stampin' Up! Good news is that this stamp set and the matching coordinating framelits are being carried over to the new catalog. I'm very, very excited about that. I absolutely adore this stamp set, and the dies are beautiful too. So I'm really glad that we're going to be able to continue to use this stamp set into next year. So what I'm doing is I have a piece of watercolor paper here. I have heavily treated that with my embossing buddy because I knew I was going to be white heat embossing all of these flower images, and I wanted to make sure that my embossing powder stayed to only the places where I stamped it using Versamark ink. So I stamped that floral image all over this piece of watercolor paper, heat set it with my heat tool with white embossing powder. Now I've taped this down to a just plastic palette, and I'm going to be using, like I said, Stampin' Up! Inks to watercolor this piece. I'm going to be doing what they call the wet on wet watercolor technique. And what that means is I'm taking clean, clear water, and I am first painting the images with this clean water. So I've taken the first set of roses there, I've applied the clean water, and now I'm just coming in with, this is Flirty Flamingo. I've smushed that ink pad onto another palette here off to the side, and that's what I'm using for my ink. And I'm diluting this down because I want a very light wash of initial color on these roses. So I'm wetting the image first, like I said, and then coming in with a very light, heavily watered down Flirty Flamingo color. And next is I'm going to bring in some fresh fig. This is going to give me those sharp, hard edges that I really was going for this watercolor. Some watercolor is soft and the colors really blend between each other, but I was going for a harder edge, a harder shadow look for this watercolor. So that's why I'm not diluting down the fresh fig. I'm actually taking the water out of my paintbrush. You'll see me bring in a paper towel, and I'll actually blot my paintbrush off to take some of the water out of the bristles. And then I'm going in and picking up that fresh fig and adding it to where I think there will be shadows. Now, I'm not being precise with this. I want this to be a messy, kind of hard edge looking watercolor. And I'm coming in here and there and blending out those hard edges with a little bit of that watered down Flirty Flamingo. And that's what gives me this dramatic color difference between that fresh fig and the Flirty Flamingo. I'm going to do the same thing for the leaves. I'll wet those down first with some clean, clear water, and then I'm going to come in with Lemon Lime Twist. That's going to be my lighter color. I'll apply that to the leaves, and then I'm going to come in with Tranquil Tide to give some of those darker shadows. And actually, if you could see the card up close, those two colors blended together, and even threw in a little bit of blue color in there, and it really is pretty. You can't see it that well from the video here. That actually looks fluorescent, and it's not that fluorescent. It's actually very pretty in real life if you could see the card in real life. So again, I'm just bringing in that Tranquil Tide and adding that to the Lemon Lime Twist, and then just lightly kind of blending it out till I get the look that I'm going for. Now I'm just going to come in again with some more of that clean, clear water, and I'm just going to paint the entire background on this watercolor piece. And then I'm going to bring in some very, very watered down smoky slate, and then that's going to give me this really soft kind of gray background to this watercolor. And I really think it helps the flowers and the petals, or the leaves, really pop from this background. And I just really loved how this very light gray turned out. After I finished painting everything, I'm now just going to add some ink splatters. I'll do the gray and the pinks that I used. And I think I even did a few flicks of the green as well. And this really gives this an organic, very watercolored look. And I love paint splatters on all my cards. After the watercolor piece completely dried, I am now adding this to a card panel made out of some sweet sugar plum cardstock. I did cut down that watercolor piece to be 5 by 4 1/4, and then this panel is just 1/8 of an inch larger than that. And then I'm going to adhere this down to a top folding A2 card base made out of some smoky slate cardstock. And now I've got these die cuts. I did 3 Whisper White die cuts and then 1 of the sweet sugar plum. I already did the M's, but I wanted to show you what I did here. I just glued each of these pieces together and stacked them up. This really gives a chipboard effect to your die cuts as opposed to just having the die cuts just cut out one time. Now I'm going to use my T-roller to line up the word mom and make sure that that's nice and straight. And I'm using also the ruler part to really line up this mom and make sure that it's evenly spaced across the card. And again, I'll just adhere that to the front with some of that Tombow multi-purpose glue. Something fun you can do with your stamping blends, because those are alcohol-based markers, you can actually use those to color things like your rhinestone and your pearls. So I have just some basic pearls here, and I took my light, rich raspberry stamping blend, and I just went around and colored the pearls directly on the backing sheet. And then I just used my my pick tool here and picked those up and applied those to the front of the card. It's a really pretty look you get when you color these with the stamping blends. And that finishes off my watercolored Mother's Day card. Thank you guys for joining me today. And if you have any questions, head on over to my blog at www.thestampcycle.com.